My guest today is a massive example, frankly, of someone who commands huge respect in what you might regard as a pretty crowded space, that of marketing. She's the creator of the watertight business thinking methodology based on original research started in 2005. The core of her proven process is captured in this, her best-selling book, Watertight Marketing. She has now tested and refined the decision-making frameworks across 3,000 plus organizations and focused on the needs of established SMEs looking to grow beyond their visionary founder. So, welcome, Bryony. Now, Bryony, so lovely to have you with us.
Isn't it? Yeah, absolutely wonderful to be here.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Bri, you pointed out something to me which was a tad embarrassing, if in a way, was that I was displaying this book, and this is Watertight Marketing. I believe there's another one, that book.
Yes. Do we see the difference?
They're a little bit different, but let's explain, shall we? So let me take you back 10 years. Okay, 10 years ago, you were thinking about writing a book. Is that true?
Yeah, I was 10 years. So my daughter will be 11 in October, and I put, I'd say pen to paper, but I actually mean fingers to keyboard, when I was 3 months pregnant. So I had been talking about it up to that point for at least 3.5 years. At that point, I've been talking about my book that didn't exist. And I went along to the Professional Speaking Association spring conference, which is how we met. And I met Mindy Gibbons-Klein. And when I was 3 months pregnant, I went and did a course with her, and it got the book out in its first iteration, the first edition, which came out on 31st of January 2013. And I wrote it whilst I was pregnant, so I know exactly when that was. And then we came to do the second edition, and doing the second edition was really interesting. And it's probably a point for everyone here to think about, is that in the intervening years, so in the 5 years or so, at the point I started to rewrite that the book had been out, the methodology hasn't changed. So there was no requirement to update the methodology necessarily, but the language and the audience had shifted around me. So the words that I was using had taken on new meaning in the intervening time. So in 2013, when I said the word small business, the person who turned up was the MD of a small multi-million pound business. And by 2020, when the second edition came out, when I said the word small business, I had people who were making cupcakes on their kitchen table and doing it as a side hustle. And so the language had changed. And so I was using the same words, but different people were showing up. And so I had to rephrase it. And then the other thing that had happened is on publishing the first edition, I did lots of speaking, lots of training, lots of consulting, and the methodology got better. Stronger. I was able to explain it more succinctly. I was able to bring examples of how it had been used. And so bringing those two things together, I decided to do the second edition and move to the right book company, which felt like a better fit for various reasons at the time that I went ahead. And so, yeah, the second edition was born.
So that just to explain to everyone, I'm actually holding the first edition here.
Yes.
Bryony has the second edition in our hands.
Yeah.
As you can see, the branding has really stayed very similar, and if you see her shelves behind her, you'll see the bucket and all the other evidence of the amazingly strong brand that Watertight Marketing has grown into. So just going back to that first moment when you put that pen to paper or the fingers to keyboard, what was in your mind, Bri? What did you feel that you were going to achieve from publishing writing and publishing a book at that time?
Well, it's great to have Cheryl in the room because I think this brings real depth to the story. So this is Cheryl Crichton. Cheryl and I have known each other for 23 years, I think. And when I set up my consultancy business in 2008, Cheryl was the person who, you know, I'd say, get this done, and she'd go, okay. So I was the strategy, she was the execution, and we went into clients and did transformation programs. And Cheryl and I got to a point where we were turning business away at 3 to 1. So for every 3 inquiries we got, we only had capacity to work with 1 client. And you may remember, were you at the session with me, Cheryl, the Bristol and Bath Marketing Network in Bath, above the Slug and Lettuce? Yeah, so I did a presentation. Right. Yeah, so I did the bucket, funnels and taps. I did a presentation, and we were discussing it afterwards. And I said, you know, these people we're turning away, if I put it in a book, at least I'd feel less bad about saying no, because I could. So I kept saying all the same things, drawing all the same pictures, and we were turning people away. So I thought, well, if I get it in a book, at least I can say, can't work with you, but here's the book. It was an elegant way of saying no to business we didn't have capacity for. Nice.
Yeah. And that, of course, was exactly what happened. But I mean, tell us a little bit about what else happened. I mean, you know, this is your methodology in a book, isn't it? And yeah. So, you know, obviously it's very strongly linked to your business. And
completely. And indeed, doing the second edition, I think really brought all the lessons from putting a book at the center of your business. So interestingly, what happens when you write a book is it strengthens your material. So it strengthens and sequences the material. And so writing the book, even if you never publish it, will be a good thing for you to do as an expert, because it will make the material better. Sequencing, I think, is a really underrated art. I think we're all old enough to remember albums. Sequencing matters. And sequencing matters in consultancy for sure. And when you're creating a satisfying read, it needs a narrative, whether it's a business book or not. And so it forces you to address your sequencing. And when you're writing it, you will spot the gaps. You'll go, hang on, there's an incoherent logic there. So it strengthens and sequences your approach. And by doing that, what I developed was a set of materials that other people could quite fluently use without me. And what ended up happening was, in that like 3 to 1, so there were the 3 that we couldn't work with and the 1 that Cheryl and I could work with. The others were saying, well, where do I find someone who can implement this for us? So they'd read the book and they go, I want one of those. And I go, okay, well, you've got me and Cheryl, which is when we started licensing. So Cheryl became one of the first licensees, along with Rachel Wheatley, who's now my business partner. And we started licensing the methodology out to other consultants. So by capturing it in this way, it created a body of work that was replicable by others.
Yeah, fantastic. And also it's gone hand in hand with the speaking that you do as well, hasn't it? And yeah. And that's all helped to build this. Tell us a little bit about that. And because I think, you know, on this kind of journey to respect that that perhaps some people a bit earlier on, and I think it's really interesting to go back to that kind of stage of where you were all those years ago, where these were fledgling ideas, and see where you are now. And, you know, the steps that, you know, actually, if we look back and see your story, and what's created that respect that's really led you to build this business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I invite you all to leapfrog through over my mistakes and just take the steps that were great. So the you know, the speaker. So initially, so 2008, I left my big corporate job. So I had 12 years career before I set up my own. My job most recent to going out on my own was Director of Marketing for Experian Marketing Services. And then prior to that, I had been agency side with the lovely Cheryl. The clients there were Microsoft and Dell, and so big budgets, big brands. Debbie and I were just chatting that we knew each other from Lloyd's TSB. So big budgets, big brands. And in 2008, I wanted to work with smaller businesses, and I wanted to catch the best bits of what I've been able to do on big budgets and determine what people needed to do. You know, think more, spend less was kind of the approach. And in order to promote my business, I started speaking. In fact, I would speak at the opening of an envelope. I was literally everywhere. So between 2008 and 2010, anywhere where people congregated and talked about businesses, basically I would speak, even if they didn't want me to be honest. And then as I say, I kept describing things in the same way and drawing all the same diagrams. And then I realized that people got paid for this. Like, there are some people, I love it. I love speaking. I think you can tell. And then I figured, well, blinking heck, you know, people get paid for that. And when I put the speaking together with the book, I was able to command decent money. So I went from free, and then I think my first ever speaking engagement was about £250. And then I think it goes up. The increments I've seen, and this is pretty well the same today as it has been for the last 10 years. I think we should go on strike and get a pay rise. It went 250, about 750 is kind of the next bar, a 750 session, half day or whatever. Then I think it goes 1,500, 3 grand, 5 grand, 10 grand. And so like my speaking journey over the last 10 years to speak, whether I'm there for an hour or a day, regardless, is 5 grand, like whatever. And if it's a really long way away, I'll say 10 grand, because they've got to make it worth it. It's definitely moved the, you know, it's moved the fee. You said earlier it's a gift, and I really want you all to understand the value. Yeah. So, or if any of you sit down and write a book. When I sat down to write the first edition, I was 12 years out, 3 degrees. I left the job I'd left. I was being paid whatever I was being paid, 6-figure sum, ridiculous money for a 28-year-old. And then I brought it all together in a book. And if you'd paid me a consulting rate to take you through everything that was in the book, what would I have charged you? 60 grand, maybe? You can get that for 15 quid.
Yeah.
And now, another 10 years on, having rigorously tested it with over 3,000 businesses, what would I charge you to take you through the book? I would charge you £120,000. You can go and get that for 15 quid.
Yeah.
So don't go sitting here thinking, how dare someone charge 5 grand for a day? Yeah, this is like, you've taken, 10, 20 years of deep knowledge, insight, perspective, made it digestible, made it fun and interesting with props and analogies and stories and case studies. And holy cow, is that a gift? Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
you
so
respect yourselves, respect your value.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that actually, that we have this issue with books, that we think that books are terribly expensive. And actually, in a recent independent publishers conference panel that I went to the conference, and there was a panel, and they were discussing this because the price of books has not gone up. Now you talked about the trajectory of the speaker fees and the kind of the way that people saw you in the world, and that the way you were able to establish your value in that way. But we can't do that with books in the same way. If you put a price, and Paul will tell you about this, if you overprice a book, it won't sell, because people have this perception that books should be cheap. Why? I don't know.
Well, and Paul and I did have that discussion about my book, because I put it out at a slightly higher rate than many others, didn't we, Paul? So, and there were lots of reasons for that. So one of the things to note in the second edition, and this was my call, not necessarily SRA, it was a conversation we had, was that I needed this to be have longevity. So the way that people use this is as a reference book. It's not I read it once and put it in the recycling cupboard, the charity bin. It is a keep it, come back to it, write on it, refer back to it. So we did things like we've got flaps that people use to mark their page. We've got edge printing, so people can go straight to the bit of the book that they want. It's full color flaps on both sides. I've spent decent money on the photography. So you can't print this on demand. Yeah, you can't have flaps on print on demand. It's also high quality. This is, you know, we went for a higher spec, and that's because I need people to understand that I'm a £5 a day person. And that doesn't come across when you send them a crap book. It just doesn't. And so I would really encourage you all to think about respecting the product. And I don't expect this to make money for me. Paul sent me my royalty statement the other day. I barely even look at royalties. It's not an income stream I count at all. This is part of the whole ecosystem. I don't expect this to make us money. If it covers costs, great.
Yeah. That's brilliant. That's brilliant, Brian. So in terms of have you got any other sort of tips, advice, thinking around, if I know there's a number of people here who are poised to start the journey, who are maybe thinking about it, have already done a book, you know, there are different people are at different stages.
Yeah.
You know, I know Kate here is actually literally about to publish. She's just literally coming to the end of that part of her journey.
Yeah.
And Wendy has already done a book. Charlotte is just about to start writing, which is great. You know, so
and those of you who've already got them, do remember, you know, when's the second edition coming? Yeah. So like,
yeah,
because you've done it, doesn't mean it's finished.
Editions. I mean, Wendy and I had that chat the other day about second edition. Why, you know, why not repurpose, review, bring your stuff up to date.
Yeah.
Get it even smarter, even better.
Yeah.
So I mean, what you've done with that second edition is amazing. And what's lovely is that for a book that was 10 years, 9 years since it was first published or whatever, it actually, you know, it had made bestseller many times. Not that we kind of put a lot of emphasis on that, but it kind of showed that it had a lot of traction over the years, and it continues to have, even as the second edition, which is really pertinent, I think, because I think it's what you said earlier about the way that it gave you that chance to kind of review and revise and move you so much.
Yeah, so it's a refresh, isn't it? And I think any of you who are publishing a book that has in it a methodology, a process, a signature, something, no doubt once the book goes out, you will then have clients that use the book. And so when you come to the second edition, the case studies are so much stronger. So on the first edition, there were absolutely true case studies, but they were slightly shoehorned because I hadn't written the book when I worked with those clients, which means they hadn't called it the logic sandwich, because I was reversing things I'd done into the methodology rather than case studying people who had actually used it. And so one of the interesting something to keep in mind for when you are coming to your second edition, I think, you know, 5 years is a good timeline to think about that, 3 to 5 years probably. You know, keep those case studies and because it's those, and you'll know it because it'll come up in speaking. You know, you'll be referring to a story all the time, and you can. The lovely thing that I found with the second edition and bringing this together with speaking is in presenting the material, I can see what lands. And so when I came to write the second edition, in some of the areas, it's a slight re-emphasis. So there are some things in the book that I may have laboured because I thought it was fascinating, and everybody was gone, yeah, you know what, everyone knows that. And then there are other things where I've said it as an aside, and people have gone, hang on, what? That was incredible. Yeah. And so in some areas, what I've done is I've brought some things forward and I've pulled some things back. And the way I know that is what lands in a room.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So by speaking it, you see it land. And some things I've spoken in a room, people have gone, and some people have gone, and you can see it, and you need to catch those things so that you can then put that into the written word.
Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant. Any other thoughts for people at any stage of the journey for how they might kind of create
spend money on it? Oh, yeah. I'm really serious. All right. So you commented on the branding. Yeah. So we've got the brand behind me. We've got decent photography. I had expensive illustrations done. I had the illustrations done such that they were layered graphics so that I can animate them in presentations. I had cartoons done that I own the copyright on. I use those for postcards. I use them for direct mail. I use them for thank you cards. Like, sit down and map out your toolkit, not just a book. Think about what that's going to look like on stand graphics. Think about what that's going to look like on business cards. Think about what that's going to translate across into your website. What's the direct mail you're going to send someone after you've done a coaching session that links to the book? So we have like the little bucket. I do a speaking session where people have to win chocolate coins that go in their bucket. And then this makes and then I take the buckets home with me. This makes an excellent follow-up. So then I can put it in the post to the people in the audience I then want to follow through with. It's got chocolate coins in it, little tag. It says chocolate money's great, real money's better, call me. And that's like, there's a tangible brand link here. Yeah, so think all this through and spend money on it. Get it done properly.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bri. It's just absolutely brilliant. It's so lovely to see you all energized as ever, and thank you so much. I know that there will be questions. I know I probably you know, from my team, but no doubt from others. If people want to, actually, you know, we're not a massive group. I don't know if we've got any in the chat already. But you're welcome to put them in the chat if other people are diving in, but otherwise, you know, feel free to stick your hand up or just unmute yourself and let's, oh yes, Paul, I'm sorry about, I've got sirens going. Oops.
Question, Bryony.
Yes, Paul.
So you had the benefit of kind of publishing Watertight Marketing twice.
Yeah.
What did you learn in terms of how to use, what did you do differently the second time in terms of how you use the book in your business? Or what did you learn from your experiences the first time around?
So first time round, I gave too much away. Not in terms of the book itself, but in terms of the companion materials. So I'd encourage you all to create companion materials, and they should. So the book needs to be satisfying in and of itself. It can't be a tease. So that really annoys me. You know, when you get a book and all the really high quality content is actually behind a data lock, or you have to go and pay for it, that really irritates me. So the book needs to be satisfying in its own right, but it does need to signpost companion material if it's going to be useful for your business. What we did wrong is that my companion material, what you could get free, was all of this. So you could go and get workbooks, and literally this landed on people like a lead weight. It's like they'd get it and they go, holy cow, do I have a spare year? And so it actually immobilized them rather than mobilized them. And so what I've done on the second edition is that there is a free companion course with the book. So first of all, I've got a little course that is how to get the most from your book, how to read it. And then there's a short companion course that has, rather than 10 exercises per chapter, 1. With a little companion video, and it signposts the deeper course. So by giving away too much, I stopped people in their tracks and I cannibalized my own product. So I think it's absolutely true and right that you should give stuff away, but there does need to be a line in the sand at which it moves from free into data lock, and then from data lock into paid.
Great, thank you.
Bryony, I have a question, thanks. I'm so impressed that, first of all, this is fab, and I love the whole branding and the kind of sumptuousness of the book and everything is great. I'm wondering, you know, the balance between giving things away and all of that. Obviously, marketing is massive. And so when I'm thinking, when you're saying about make sure that it is satisfying, how do you say, if you've got a 6-month program you want to put into a book, or there's tons of stuff that, you know, there's a whole load of things people need to do. How do you, I have 2 questions, by the way, this is the first one. How do you give enough so that it just is not like light for this section? The key thing you need to do is it doesn't actually get the result. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, okay. So am I able to share screen, Paul? I'm gonna share.
I think
with you.
I
Yeah?
think you can. I don't
Okay.
think we've got a limit on it.
Okay, cool. So what I'm going to share with you is this is an item from our Make Marketing Happen Club vault. The co-founder of our Make Marketing Happen Club. This is something that we put together for people in our vault of material, and it gives you an example of what I mean by companion materials, but it also answers the question that has been asked. So when you're gifting content, when you're putting things out into the world, like a gateway item, which in our methodology is leak 4, what you can do is a slice, a skim, or a sample. So if you have created a signature process, you either slice off the front, this is step 1 in its entirety, but you signpost the additional steps, or you do a skim. Yeah, so here's the whole process. I'm going to take you through the key item of each, or you do a sample. So I'm going to dive you in here, and we're going to create you a sample kind of that. So what we have is initially we've got a kind of a slice, and I've taken a sliver of that. So we have our Flow Foundations assessment. The Flow Foundations are detailed in chapter 2 and chapter 11, and people are encouraged to come and do a data locked little skim of that. Then we have our training program. So our training program is kind of 50% to 80% deep. And then we have our full transformation, which is the whole thing, so a 2-year program. Or you can jump in and just do like one part. So we've assessed it, and we need to go here. So do the touch point leak assessment. So you essentially take your signature process, whatever that might be, and you either slice off the front, skim off the top, or give them a sample.
In the book.
Yeah, so a book or a webinar could be one or the other. So I would say that a book should be one of these things. Yeah, so it should either be the first step of something, a skim along the top. Watertight marketing is a 20% skim of the Watertight business thinking methodology. The book is a 20% skim.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas I might now do, I could now do Tweak Your Leaks as a single item, which is part of my step 2, and it's one framework. I could do a whole book on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, because I was kind of worried that you might have to commit to doing 4 books, and I might kill you to do one.
No.
The other
but if you can orient it in some sort of graphic, like it's like a tourist map. It's like you are here, but there's lots of other things to visit. Yeah. Then what that's doing is saying, folks, I sell things. You've got this little bit.
Yeah, thank you. The second question is, I absolutely love the way you can put your company name and everything on your Zoom screen. How do you do that?
That's a tool called Ecamm, which works on Mac. And if you want it on a PC, there's a system called OBM. It's a paid for. I've stuck it in chat. Ecamm on Mac, OBM on PC.
It looks so compelling, you know, very professional. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kate.
Thanks, Sue. Hi, Bryony.
Hello.
Oh, I've loved everything you shared so far, and I just wondered if you could speak to your experience of launching your books and any thoughts or inspiration around how to go about that.
Yeah, absolutely. My advice on launching a book is, first of all, to have a private party. Have a party for yourself to mark the milestone and celebrate with people who matter, and treat it as a really fun moment to recognize how far you've come. Then plan the business launch of your book, and you will own the copyright on your book for 70 years. So I suggest that you launch your book every day for the next 70 years. So everybody who encounters your book for the first time, it's the first time they've seen it. Most people who've seen it once before probably need reminding. A launch is never done, and you can do it regularly all the time, and it's never finished.
Brilliant, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Bryony. Yes, Charlotte.
Hi, Bryony, that was great. I love that, and I loved how you sort of poured in respect and really helpful. I'm sort of just about to put pen to paper or, you know, fingers to keyboard and get started. And how did you, my question to you would be, how did you get across that sort of, or maybe you didn't have it, that sort of imposter syndrome? Do I know enough? Have I got a niche in the market? What am I, you know, am I bringing something that's different? How am I going to stand out? So,
okay. Yeah, great question. Do I have imposter syndrome? Yeah. Who doesn't? I'm human. Like, who needs more marketing ideas, right? But if in fact we all probably need fewer, which is kind of the point of the book. It's to help you prioritize. So here are a number of things I'd say to that. The first is that we all bring a perspective. So if you get your finger and stick it on the end of your nose and close one eye and look at your finger, close the other eye and look at your finger, keep doing it, swap eyes, it looks like your finger's moving. Yeah, right. That's because there's actually a gap in your vision here, and your brain is seeing two images and piecing it together and showing you the truth. You're interpreting the gap. And so you provide one perspective and I provide another and somebody else provides another, and you piece it together as the person who's reading many books, and you squint your eyes and you go, I'll take that, that's my picture. Yeah, so you're nobody has the whole answer. Lots of books come at the same truth from different perspectives. So I've got a big load of respect for Daniel Priestley. I love his work. Absolutely love it. And there are lots of things in Daniel's work where he's taken a different perspective on the same truth. So his product for prospects is my Leak 4. Yeah, we've just seen the same thing and described it differently. And some people will go to Daniel's work and go, oh, brilliant, product for prospects, I get that. And other people go, I don't get that. Leak 4, gateway, time, data, money, oh, I get that. It's the same truth. Do you know what I mean? It's just a different perspective. The other thing I'd say is that take care in thinking that things that are obvious to you are obvious to the world. Cheryl, you know your blog post, the How to Write a Marketing Brief?
Yes, that I wrote 6 or 7 years ago.
You know, it's longer than that. I think it's about 9 years ago. So Cheryl wrote this blog post called How to Write a Marketing Brief, and she wanted to put it live, and I read it and I said, you can't publish that. Who doesn't know that? That's bloody obvious. Right. So we put it out. It is our highest traffic blog post, has been for 12 years, 10 years, whatever it is, because you know what? It's not bloody obvious.
Well, it does a couple of things. It tells people maybe a few things that they didn't know, because you don't know what you don't know. And it also equips people to have confident conversations about that topic where previously they may not have got that detail. So it just gives a bit of confidence, and blog posts should do that. They should be practical and blah, blah, blah. But the point is, yes, it's evergreen. And someone who didn't know it yesterday knows it today. And someone who doesn't know it tomorrow will read the blog post and know it tomorrow. You know, we're very proud of that one little bit of content. But
and your book is just a bigger version of that. And as an expert, what you think is obvious is not obvious to others. And even the people who come to it and go, I did know that, they don't go, I did know that, you idiot for posting it. They go, I did know that. Isn't that well articulated? I agree. Yeah, so it becomes validation. They don't look at a great piece of content that captures a truth and is helpful and go, what a fool for publishing that. They read it and they go, that's my kind of person. I agree. So even the people who already know find validation.
No, that's really helpful, because I think sometimes you forget maybe the journey that you've been on, how much you know. And when you look back, you know, years ago, you actually, I think it's easy. That's really, thanks for clarifying that, because I think you forget how much you know now as to where you
do. I forget how much I know. I watch my own videos and go, bloody hell, that's a good idea. I should totally do that. Honestly, I reckon I could reread Watertight myself and go, oh yeah. So like, even we forget what we know. So the fact that other people don't know what you know is of course reasonable, because we don't even know what we know.
Yeah, no, and I think sometimes it's easy to jump over the basic stuff to get to what you think they want to know, but actually making sure that the basics are done well.
And this is another really good point. So people who are highly expert forget that other people do need to go on that journey. And again, about respect, you need to respect the learning journey of others. And I sometimes find that people who are the equivalent of a PhD, they really know their stuff, are trying to go in at PhD level with people who are in their first week of an undergraduate, metaphorically speaking. Yeah. And so if you're going out to an audience who doesn't know what you know, you can't start where you are. You have to start where they are and take them on that learning journey and respect the process of them letting that unfold too.
Yeah, no, really helpful. Thank you. Thanks, Bryony.
Rona.
I really enjoyed that, Bryony. I think the point you made about strengthening and sequencing your thoughts really hit home for me, because I think it links with the last point, in that when you strengthen and sequence your own thinking, you're kind of going on a cognitive journey. And I think that's where, like Charlotte's point, you've learned all that stuff over time, and to share it means you're sharing it not at PhD level, you're sharing it as the learning accumulates. And I think, again, if someone's an expert reading it, it isn't stupid, as you say, it consolidates what you know, and you think, yeah, that's it, that it's been put well. So I think that was the journey I was on, was trying to capture it in that way with my book, and the sequencing bit, Bev was the saviour in that. She helped me with that. So yeah, I really, that resonated with me. Thank you.
I was going to say, I think it's a really, really good point. And I think that if people struggle with it, which sometimes they do, you remember, you don't have to do this alone. You can work with an editor, you can work with a book coach, whatever level of support you need, you can get it. You don't have to do this all by yourself. Your stuff's all there and no one else can do that for you, but they can help you organize it. They can help you with that sort of way of making sure that it's presented in such a way as you're talking about here, to pull people in and on your journey with you. So,
and I would go further than that as well, Sue, because I think lots of people feel like somehow that's cheating.
I know,
but it wasn't them that did it. So there's Lara Cullen, who's published with you as well. So Lara, I do have her book, but it's out in the hall. We did some coaching together, and she presented her approach to me, and I drew it. Yeah, so as she was speaking, I drew a model, and I said, "Is that what you've just told me?" She said, "Yeah, that's it," as a picture. And she goes, "Well, I can't use that because you did it."
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I drew what you were saying.
Yeah.
This is not my model. This is your model. And so me being a coach and helping her to articulate what she knows, helping her to sequence it, helping her to visualize it, doesn't make it any less hers.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic.